Hi, I'm Miles Gilderdale,
And I'm Greg Carmichael, and together we're Acoustic Alchemy.
and you're watching us on Jazz Across the Pond with a Jazz Cat and Mr. G.
Enjoy.
So we have just been toe tapping, mesmerizing, loving the most amazing sound from Acoustic Alchemy. It's an album called 33 and a Third. The track we've just listened to is a track called Blues for Mr. Moo, which we're going to find out more about. Acoustic Alchemy, born in the UK, forged in the USA, 30 years plus, and the forefront of contemporary jazz, triple Grammy nominated. Ladies and gentlemen, unmissable live shows. Well,
Greg and Miles, as the only Yank on the program today, allow me to say welcome from across the pond here in the United States, your second home.
Yeah.
As Roger mentioned, the phrase born in the UK, forged in the USA, has great significance as Acoustic Alchemy was first truly embraced here in the USA. You secured your first record contract here in America, which opened the doors to your worldwide fan base. Now, the circumstances obviously beyond your control forced Acoustic Alchemy to cancel your 12 shows this month in the United States. You would have been performing tonight in Texas, and I was scheduled to attend your show at the Tin Pan here in Richmond, Virginia on the 25th. But your website had the following statement, just a little short one I'm going to add. We know this will be very disappointing to all of you who are looking forward to seeing us. Please bear in mind that however much you have missed seeing us play, we have missed playing for you more. We, your fans, will be very disappointed not to be able to see you. But also understand that from this side of the pond, we know that your statement is from the heart, and we eagerly await your return in 2022. It's going to be a great year. But for our viewers, if you need an Acoustic Alchemy fix, check out last year's project, Live from Lockdown, with brilliant new arrangements of your classic songs, including a stint on Live at Daryl's House for a total of 3 hours, available for only $14.99. Brilliant program. Brilliant program. 3 hours of music and about a third of the cost of a ticket. So, folks, you need that fix.
Right.
Check it out.
I'm going to make a note of that because I'm going to buy that. That sounds incredible. I'm going to buy that.
Sold.
I want a copy. Okay, we're going to be chatting to the two of you. Ladies and gentlemen, what can we say about Acoustic Alchemy? Now, English smooth jazz band formed in England in the early 1980s by Nick Webb and Simon James. Here, after some 40 years later, the band are still as popular as ever, creating the most fabulous music for their fans all over the world. So, the band may have had some new faces, but they remain one of the best smooth jazz bands to come out of England. Ladies and gentlemen, please join Jazz Across the Pond, Mr. G, myself, the Jazz Cat, as we warmly welcome the wonderful gentleman from Acoustic Alchemy. Gentlemen, how are we doing?
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's amazing.
Very
Now,
happy to be here.
well, we're very, very happy for you to come and join us. It's absolutely wonderful. Now, we want to talk, first of all, can you just take us up from where you joined? Because, of course, we know that Simon started to leave the band and that you then joined the band. And that. So in the early days, because there's the most wonderful story, our researchers have done some amazing work about the Virgin Atlantic Airways and about you were booked on that initially for transatlantic flights going over. And then that wonderful deal where you got with the MCA, you got the contract. Could you just bring our followers up to speed on that, please?
Yeah, so Acoustic Alchemy was originally Nick Webb and Simon James. And they were playing in, wine bars, some of, mid-sized venues in England, but felt they weren't really sort of getting anywhere. It was very difficult because in England at that time, in the early 80s, the media just weren't interested in acoustic jazz guitars. So Simon, because he's by trade, he was a classical guitarist, he decided to pursue that career. And Nick wanted to keep, to his credit, wanted to keep this thing going. And he heard about me, came down to see me. I was playing with a local pub band, but what was different about what I was doing was I was playing nylon string guitar, and there weren't that many nylon string guitar players who were doing that sort of playing jazz. Most of them were doing classical, and so yeah, we hooked up. And it was great. I mean, Nick they'd already written, had their first album called Acoustic Alchemy, and I remember going around to his apartment in the West End, in the centre of town in London, and he was a very charismatic character. He was strongly believed in this Acoustic Alchemy, and he very much wanted to keep it going. And I got kind of drawn in because I thought it was great. Some of the tracks he played me, I thought were fantastic. And so how it started really was that we started writing together. We didn't really have any intention. We weren't sure quite where it was going to go. So we were just writing stuff together. And then we also were playing in wine bars. And on this one particular night, this bass player came in and he said, "Hey guys, look, there's have you seen this little ad?" It was a little box ad on the back of the local London Evening Standard, and it said, "In-flight entertainment required for Virgin Airlines. Jugglers and fire eaters need not apply." So that kind of got our attention. And when we went to this audition, it was literally, you know, you had fiddle players, hurdy-gurdy players, and they're all because the deal was that if you got the gig, you would get a free return flight to the States. So we got the gig, you know, we got it. And rather than just going to New York and having a great time and coming home, we took our demo tapes that we had. And so we arrived in New York, and then we went to Nashville to meet up with an old friend of mine who was American bass player. And when he picked us up at the airport, he listened to our demos and he said, "You know what, guys, this sort of music is just taking off here in the States, and it's called they're calling it New Age." And so he kind of instigated some. He said, "Well, why don't you go and see this guy Tony Brown at MCA Records?" So I mean, we tried a few other places, but it was Tony Brown who listened to it and really liked it. But he didn't actually commit at that point. He didn't say, "Okay, we'll sign you." We traveled around the States, got our return flight, as was the deal, and then about 6 weeks later got the phone call and said, "We'd like to sign you." And wow, that was amazing, because nothing was happening in England. I mean, had we not done that, then none of this would have happened. Yeah.
Amazing. Now that was 1987, and of course the first album was the wonderful Red Dust for Spanish Lace, which is an absolute incredible. We love all that. And actual fact, where's Miles gone? He's just so weird. Okay. Now what I was going to say was, this is my den of iniquity here, okay? And you have Pride in Place here, and you've got a wall just for Acoustic Alchemy just here. So
wow.
There's a few gaps, which one I'm bringing up here. But that's a brilliant album. And now, where did the name Acoustic Alchemy, where did that come from then?
Well, that was Nick's idea. He liked the idea of, obviously, it being acoustic, and the alchemy, you know, the alchemist blending base substances into gold. And so the idea being that, you know, the alchemy was a fusion of music. But the thing that he really liked about it was the fact it was AA, so it was always at the top of any listings. And that was good.
Now, just before, Kevin is very, and I love the hat for Miles, and there's a story behind this somewhere, but we'll come into it in a minute. Before Miles, we will talk to you in a second, I promise. I'm going to tell you a relay of story. Kevin doesn't even know I'm going to say this one. In 1990, I just finished a stint in America on a radio show out there, and I'd come back to England, and I was in London, and I popped into a little shop in London in Knightsbridge. You may have heard it. It's called Harrods. You may have heard of it. It's a little.
Yeah, don't go there myself.
Yeah,
seen it, but I've never been in.
But I went in.
I once tried to get in there wearing a pair of jeans, and they chucked me out.
So I went in there, and I went up to the 5th floor, and I went into the hi-fi. True story. I went into the hi-fi section, and this very nice assistant goes, "Hello, sir," and he said, "Would you like to have a listen?" And I was looking for new speakers and an amplifier, but I knew I couldn't afford the prices at Harrods. So I sat there, and he said, "If you sit in this seat, this is the optimum seat to appreciate the full ambience of the sound." I was going, "Go on then." He proceeded to play Missing Your Touch from Reference Point.
Wow.
And I sat there and I went, and I hate to say, this is like your fourth album at that stage. It blew me away. I hate to admit, I didn't buy the amplifier and speakers from there, but I went straight to a record shop and I bought that one. I love it. And that, people say, where were you the first time you heard the Beatles or Pink Floyd? The first time I heard Acoustic, I was in Harrods. So there we are. There's a nice little story for you.
That's nice. I mean, it's nice because that's happened a bit, hasn't it, Miles? I mean, where they've used our music to demonstrate hi-fi speakers, and really, that's really our engineer, isn't it, Klaus in Germany, who's kind of responsible for that. He's so brilliant. He really, I mean, he was a very important member of the team in the early days, because he just made fantastic recordings, and we've been going. We always go to his studio when we do an album, if not to record, certainly to mix. I mean, he's brilliant, isn't he?
Right.
Kevin, a question from you.
Well, one of the things that I wanted to just take a little quick step back is that the fascinating thing about Jeff Klein was that he actually stepped in and filled in, Greg, for Julia Doyle. He was also responsible for saying, I've been playing with these guys called Acoustic Alchemy. I've sat in with them a couple of times, and he knew that there was going to be a personnel change, and he suggested that you reach out to them. So not only did he suggest that you reach out to Acoustic Alchemy, but he also obviously has been involved on numerous occasions.
You're right. I'd forgotten that. I was doing a duo gig with Julia Doyle, an upright.
Yes.
And she couldn't make it, and Jeff did it, and he was the one who said, "I know someone called Nick," and he kind of. He prompted Nick to come and see me,
Yes.
because obviously, Jeff, dearly departed Jeff. I mean, he was a real old school British jazzer, fantastic. Real kind of sort of the earth gigging music.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Well, I was going to ask, whatever became of him. That was going to be the final part of the question, but you've kind of addressed that.
Yeah, it was. He passed away. I would say 7-8 years ago. Yeah.
Okay,
a really lovely guy,
Before we go, there's another gentleman there with a lovely hat on and a shirt there. I don't know. There is a story there somewhere.
That's Kevin.
We mustn't forget the wonderful Miles. I mean, now Miles, a multi-Grammy nominee, winner of the Gibson Guitarist of the Year Award. And you're also an official PRS artist, Miles, and a brand new member of the band, of course, coming up. Now, your songwriting has been described as a blend of Steely Dan and Stevie Ray Vaughan. This, coupled with your signature blues virtuoso, makes you an artist definitely worth keeping an eye on. Miles, before we play another track from the album, how did you come into the band then?
It was, again, through a third part. The connection was that I knew Stuart, who was Stuart Coxhead was Alchemy's manager. And I knew Stuart, he was from Leeds, I live in York. So I'd got to know him through Snake Davis's band. I'd been playing with Snake Davis, the sax player. And indeed, Snake and I had a band in the 80s. A big soul band. So that's how I knew Stuart. And Stuart just rang me up one night and said, there's this band I look after. They're looking for electric guitarists, because Nick was still alive. They're looking for electric guitarists. Do you want to audition? And I thought, what the heck? I said, yes. I said, yes. And then he went on to describe them. I said, what sort of band is it? And he said, well, it's instrumental, and it's just sort of easy listening, and they're big in the US. And while he was talking, I just made up my mind that it was Muzak, lift music, and that I was going to hate it. But I said, anyway, send me a tape. And he sent me the tape, and the tape was great, because the first thing that came up was Mr. Chow, and and they've just finished. They've been working on the sort of semi-live album, the live in the studio album.
Arcanum.
Arcanum, and there were a couple of tracks from that. And then I loved it, and I thought, oh blimey, I want to be in this band. This isn't. So I really worked hard on the 4 tracks that I was going to be auditioned on. And then,
Well-
yeah, went over to Leeds, and Nick and Greg and the guys were there, and I was auditioned.
Well, before we break for the next track, Miles, I've got to tell a little story about you. You've been performing and writing for over 3 decades and fronting bands, most notably Zoot and the Roots, which found the legendary Led Zeppelin vocalist, Mr. Robert Plant, in the audience on numerous occasions.
That's
Robert
right.
was apparently a big fan, spoke highly about your band within his sphere of influence. Little did you know that Mr. Plant convinced the godfather of soul, James Brown, to use Zoot and the Roots as their opening act for their upcoming 6-week tour. Unfortunately, while your manager was aware of something was forthcoming, your agent was not. And when the call came through, your agent, who shall remain nameless, turned down the offer.
Yeah, that's true.
So is that indeed correct?
That's
And
entirely correct.
have you had any occasions to speak with Robert Plant since those early days?
No. We didn't know about any of this until we were playing at the Palladium, the London Palladium, with Benny King. And Benny King he was at #1 in the UK with Stand By Me. And we were playing with him. And it was at that gig that backstage that Robert Plant was there, and Robert Plant's manager. And it was then that Robert Plant's manager said to our manager, "Why on earth did you turn down the James Brown tour?" At which point our manager said, "What's James Brown tour?" And this was off the back of living in America. You know, he was #1. Living in America relaunched James Brown. And so this was a big European tour that we were offered, and consequently declined. We can all laugh about it now.
But thank goodness you didn't. Thank goodness you didn't, though.
There's it also, because there's a very, very true story that Dick Rowe, who was the of Polydor, he turned the Beatles down. He went, "Oh, they'll never make it. No." He dismissed them out of hand, and then he realized what he'd made a mistake. So he signed up a band called the Rolling Stones to try to get credibility back. Anyway, we're going to take a quick break now from this wonderful interview. Now, our researchers have found out there's a little island in the South Pacific about 150 miles south of Tahiti, all right? And apparently in this island, they've never heard of Acoustic Alchemy, all right? So they're the only people in the entire world haven't heard of you. So we're going to play this track for the people of Bora Bora, so they can go around, "Oh yeah, Acoustic Alchemy." We're going to play a track from 33 1/3. It is a fabulous track. The track we're going to play is The Swallow's Tale. We'll be straight back with the wonderful interview. We can't wait to continue this conversation with Greg and Miles. Jazz Across the Pond with the Jazz Cat and Mr. G. We'll be back momentarily. Stay with us.
Welcome back to Jazz Across the Pond, Jazz Interviews Reimagined with the Jazz Cat and Mr. G. We've been listening to The Swallow's Tale from Acoustic Alchemy's exceptional 2018 project, 33 1/3. Gentlemen, great track, great project, but I wanted to ask you specifically about The Swallow's Tale. I couldn't find who the saxophonist was playing on that track. It sounds a little bit like Jeff Cashawa. I'm not certain who it is. But
Yeah,
Very
yeah.
was it Jeff?
That was Jeff, yeah. And I mean, what's great about that, I think, is the fact that, you know, as you're listening to that track, you've got no idea that there's suddenly going to be a sax coming,
Exactly.
and I really, you know, can take you by surprise. I really like that, and I think the two tracks he played on, he just on this album, 33 1/3, is just fantastic. I mean, I think it's some of his, for me, his finest soloing. It was just wonderful. I mean, he was great.
Well, Jeff is a friend and an artist member of my Facebook project, The Smooth Jazz Train, and he's a former guest actually on Roger's show, Jazz Moods on the Voice FM in North Devon. And if I also remember correctly, wasn't there a Scottish flugelhorn player, Mr. Malcolm Strachan, that also was on 33 1/3?
Yeah.
Yep.
He's a former guest of ours on Jazz Across the
Right.
Pond
Okay.
as well. So,
Yeah, he featured a lot more on some earlier albums, didn't he, Miles? Yeah, a few albums ago, he had a bit more of a feature, but yeah, no, he was on 33 1/3.
Blimey, I couldn't understand a word he said during the interview.
Yeah.
His Scottish brogue is so heavy, but it was pretty amazing.
Scottish.
I mean, he played live with us, didn't he, at the Pizza Express?
Yeah, he did. Yeah,
Oh, awesome.
that was quite a way back.
Roger?
Okay. Positive Thinking in 1998 was Acoustic Alchemy's last album with the original frontman Nick Webb. The musicians Greg, John, and Dennis Murphy on bass. Nick Webb was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer and very, very sadly died just after the album came out, and died on the 5th of February 1998. So reforms happened. Greg brought in Miles, as we've already just alluded to on that one there. And the first album that he came out was with The Beautiful Game, a brilliant album. I love that album.
Definitely.
It was so. How this is a question to Greg. I mean, you obviously, with total respect for Nick, what were you looking for? Miles presumably must have just fitted the bill tremendously. Was there ever a period where you thought, do you know what, I think that's the end of the band, or you really felt, no, we've still got something there?
For me personally, at that time, I thought I wasn't sure I could carry on with this, because Miles, it was the John Parsons kind of did the very early gigs, and I wasn't sure if I could do it without Nick, because he was such a major part of Acoustic Alchemy. But I think it was just the way that the fans, their reaction to when we played our first gigs after Nick's death, that they were so supportive and positive and thinking, you know, this is great. And, you know, I've got to say, doing it with Miles, I mean, it's great. I mean, we're great friends. And that Beautiful Game we wrote up in his at his house in York, and the ideas were just flowing. It's all about sitting in a room with someone and the ideas flowing, and you know, just to spend hours and hours and hours sitting with someone, and you're kind of just exposing all, you know, things that you play, and they might think, oh, I don't like that, or, you know, you're really opening yourself up. You've got to like the person, and you've got to really get on. And I feel very strongly that we've got a great friendship. You know, we do, and that's key, really,
well,
crucial.
You were once quoted as saying, I'm forever grateful to Miles for joining us. It's never easy taking on someone's place in the band. I think you'll always find a balance between being yourself, bringing your own voice and to the mix, and the remaining faithful of the songs they have come to before you. And Miles does that perfectly. And it's in tribute to him that the band have continued to evolve, draw new fans without losing the old fans. I think that is a lovely sentiment. That's wonderful.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I didn't know you'd said that. That's very nice. Thank you. Thank you very much, Greg.
Now you find out, right, Miles? Now you find out.
Yeah.
Well, obviously, Greg, the decision to both continue with Acoustic Alchemy's work and to depart from it to some degree has paid off with overwhelming response and support from your growing fan base. Beautiful Game made it to the top 5 on Billboard's Contemporary Jazz chart. Art, one of my favorite projects, was nominated for a Grammy Award. And both you and Miles have been honored as the Gibson Guitar Award winners for Best Jazz Guitarist. In 2001, the online radio station Jazz Tracks awarded Acoustic Alchemy with the Jazz Track Live Performance of the Year, and also honored Art with their Album of the Year. Now, Miles, you were quoted as saying, with all the transitions the band has made over the last few years, it's exciting that we're still pulling these great crowds and carrying on beyond our wildest expectations. So Miles, my question to you is, what do you think, and maybe, Greg has touched on it a little bit, there's something about being in a room with another artist and maybe a couple of pots of tea, but what's been the secret for your tremendous relationship, your tremendous partnership?
Yeah, I don't know that. I don't think I for one have never analysed it. I'm not I'm one of those people who always think, okay, what's next? It's always, you sort of finish that, you work on an album and you sort of make sure it comes to fruition, and then you go out and tour it, and then you're always looking down the road, and I think I'm probably just extremely lucky that I'd say, the relationship with Greg is just a given. It's taken for granted, but the man, Greg, is hugely generous, and is always, all the members of the band, he gives everyone lots of space to sort of be themselves. There's never, the one thing about Greg is he's never been precious about his, there's no sort of ego there or requirement to push himself forward. It's a real team player, and I'd like to think I'm a team player.
Yeah, I think that's the great thing, is that we're all team players. I mean, it's about a team, isn't it? And it is interesting how things change. I mean, like, you introduce a different member into the team, and it gives it a different flavor. Like, we've had different players over the years, haven't we? Different people doing things, and it affects the sound. I mean, it's incredible. Sometimes you just bring in a different bass player, and it
dynamic, isn't it?
Yeah, changes the dynamic, exactly. Yeah.
Well, Greg, you happen to be your worst critic, and the nice thing about Miles is you'll go, "This is rubbish," and Miles will go, "No, it's not." He jerks you back and says, "No, it's not. It's brilliant. We need to go with this," and so you work through it. It's that type of relationship. It's that collaborative experience that you guys have discovered that has just served you so well.
Yeah.
But you are
and hopefully, we can continue to do that. I mean, we've been, with, the lockdown and all these sort of things, we haven't really had the opportunity to, get together to start thinking about another album. And it's always difficult, the next album. It's always hard because you always want to try. And I just don't want to do the same old thing. I just don't ever want to repeat ourselves. And I think so far we've managed to avoid that. There was always a thing, wasn't it? The difficult second album, like you did Red Dust, and then you had to do the second album. But I think it never changes. I think you're always looking for something. I just don't want to do the same old. I mean, it's got to be good. And it's only going to happen when I go up and sit in the same room as with Miles, and it might be harder this time, but we thrash it out and hopefully do something. But I always it's quite amazing the way when you start something, you might think, oh, I'm a bit worried about this, but as soon as you get into it and an idea comes, it gets exciting, doesn't it? And then the ball starts rolling and you're doing stuff.
Well, I'm going to pick up very, very quickly because I love you've mentioned the word team a couple of times there, and I'm a firm believer the spelling of the word team is together, everybody achieves more, which I think is a great way, and that sums up exactly. Now, over the few months we've done interviews, one thing you were just saying there, we interviewed the wonderful Brian Bromberg, from California a few months ago, and he picked up exactly what you were saying there. When he turned around, he said that when you listen to a Brian Bromberg album, it's not Brian Bromberg out based on the rest of the musicians behind him. He has total respect for all the musicians, and it really annoys him. In the interview with him, he annoys him when he hears sax players, and all you can hear is the sax player, and there's a pianist in the back, you can't hear him. And Brian's going, let the guy have a go, let him out the front, have a go in there. And so there's this mutual respect for all the musicians. And it was a great interview, and it made both Kevin and myself think very, very. And when we went back and analysed more albums, and one of the reasons that you hold a very good selection line, because you do exactly that. When I listen to Acoustic Alchemy album, I can drive in the car, whatever, and the mixture is everything. There's nobody predominantly at the front. It's a band, and it's the most wonderful music.
Thank you.
Absolutely fabulous. Okay, now, gentlemen, yes, we're coming out. Unfortunately, time is ticking away. I know Kevin's probably got another question, very eager. We also want to find out about this hat. This is really puzzling me. The two of you wearing this hat. Kevin, you're going to have to allude to that with Miles, and because I wish I'd known, because I would have ruined my hair. Do you know what I mean? So what I would say is, it's been a very difficult time for everybody with this COVID. People unable to tour. There's been people releasing albums, and because of technology, they've had guitarists in Puerto Rico and all the rest of it, but they haven't actually met in a studio. Now it looks as if there's light coming out of the tunnel. We can start going on tour. What does the next 12 months look like for Acoustic Alchemy now?
Well, the first thing we're doing is we're back to our normal. We have a residency at the Pizza Express Jazz Club in London, and we've been doing that for 25, 30 years, and always at the same time in December. And in fact, that was the last gig we did, wasn't it? 2 years ago.
2019. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
That was the last gig we did. Yeah. And then
we were on stage. It's horrible. It's terrible. Yeah.
And so that's going to be happening. I mean, I'm guessing it's just going to be like picking up where we left off, you know.
Yeah, I'd like to think so. Yeah, I mean, we'll do that, hopefully.
I mean, rest assured that date in December, let me know it. I will promote it on my radio show, but I will be at the front of the audience, and I'll promise I'll wear a nice subtle shirt like this one again. I've got guitars all over this shirt. Have you seen?
Yeah. It was brilliant. Yeah.
Okay, Kevin, come on then.
Well, I know you can ask me off air about the hat. I mean, obviously it was a balm. It was kind of a chilly 55 degrees this morning. And so I've been a big fan of Miles for quite some time. You know, I've been friends on Facebook, but I did want to close with a final statement if I could. Greg and Miles, the two of you have an amazing relationship, and we, your fans, are very thankful and amazed that you've accomplished so much together over the last 34 years. But I would like to mention that the beautiful game not only marked the addition of Miles, but also the outstanding pianist and keyboard, Mr. Fred White. And ultimately, the three of you were joined by the Granger brothers, bassist Gary and drummer Greg. You guys have formed an intuitive and technically tight quintet, and we hope that Acoustic Alchemy has many more years of success. So, like I said, for our listeners and viewers, make certain you do check out, Live from the Lockdown. It's a great project, and if you've missed seeing the boys this month here in America, you've got an opportunity to see a three-hour concert that's well worth the ticket price. So.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, where can our followers, just in case they had lived in Bora Bora and they've now moved back to the United Kingdom or America, where can our followers buy, download, purchase your back catalogue of music? Where can they get it?
Where can they buy
it?
Download as well? I mean, is it Absolute, Miles, or?
Well, I think it's all in the usual places. I mean, a lot of people have got Amazon accounts or Apple Music accounts. Those tend to be the first places for people to go to these days. It's all there, and just in the places that have replaced the CD shops, really.
That's right. But actually, that reminds me, we're releasing 33 1/3 on vinyl, aren't we?
Yes. Oh. So it really will revolve at 33 1/3.
There you go.
This was one of the questions. The 33 1/3 obviously was reference to a turntable speed, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So it's coming out in very, very shortly, soon, a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
in optical, not analog. Oh yes, well, fabulous. The other way around. Oh, I can't wait. That's gonna be brilliant. Gentlemen, we can't thank you enough. We really can't thank you enough. I'm going to be looking forward to that date in December, as soon as you give me the date.
Yeah, there's the 15th to the 23rd inclusive. 15th.
15th to the 23rd, yeah?
Inclusive, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
9 days. 9 days. Yeah.
And there's double shows on Fridays and Saturday. We do 2 shows. So there's a sort of early show that starts at 7 or something, and then we do the other one starts at 10. But yeah.
Well, I will be there, and if I have a shirt which is brighter than your light, you'll go, oh, there's the Jazz Cat. There's the Jazz Cat now. There's Roger Lee. I know where he is. Gentlemen,
I love it.
it has been an absolute pleasure and an honor to have you join us on our show. I've been a fan of yours, I said, since Harrods. I've been a massive, massive fan of yours. I really have been. Kevin, along with myself, and that. And can't thank you enough. Ladies and gentlemen, Jazz Across the Pond, we are so privileged and honored to be chatting to the wonderful Greg and Miles of Acoustic Alchemy. Gentlemen, we thank you both.
Thank you,
very
guys.
much. Cheers.
Say goodnight, Kevin.
Well, thank you, Greg, Miles, and Roger, and goodbye, everybody.
Thanks, Kevin.
Cheers.
Take care. Look after yourselves from Jazz Across the Pond.
To Mr. G's, to Mr. G's.